Hello.
Hey guys,
It's Jenny.
and Betsy.
That's right. And we are here for the tall and the short of it. Education conversation number one.
And speaking of, see, look, I like these chairs. I can be taller in these chairs.
Yeah, then it doesn't show how much taller I am than you and we're sitting down anymore. Oh, okay.
It's all right.
It's fine. It's fine. All right. Well, hopefully people will start popping on here and join in the conversation. So, like I said, this is just how we're going to do stuff. We're going to pop on either Betsy's classroom or some other location, and hopefully people will pop on live and join us for some of the conversations. We're usually going to do this on Thursdays, but I won't be here to be able to do it with her tomorrow, so we figured we would do Wednesday for our first one. But as you notice, we've been posting other little engagement posts throughout the week so that you can start conversations with us. Don't forget, you can ask questions, you can recommend topics, you can message us if you feel more comfortable doing it that way, so that we can, and we did put a poll question down there about themes. So make sure you check out the little question about what type of themes you guys would be most interested in hearing about. Because we talked about this the other day, and we decided that if we did a monthly theme, we could dive more deeply into some of the topics.
And it would just help give us a focus and
and focus our content for the month. We can keep our articles and quotes and things that we recommend for you guys focused around that topic then for the month. So we'll start that for November.
And and we kind of talked about, we thought one of the topics that would be most requested is behavior. So instead of having that a month dedicated to behavior, we're going to do behavior, behavior-ish, once a week. Yeah. And so
we'll do definitely something, either a post, a video, a recommendation for something, an article, something about behavior every week. And then, like I said, we may end up focusing on behavior of, if we define that someone really needs us to delve into something a little more deeply, we can do that. But we figured we'd want to thread behavior in and out of some of the other topics.
Want to wait until
it's also intertwined in a way.
Yes.
So our first behavior topic, actually, that we want to talk about today is that behavior is communication. So we're starting really general. So I'll let you kind of explain why we decided to pick this.
Well, I find when I'm asked to, maybe in the past when I've been asked to go in and observe in others' classrooms, to observe students, or even in my classroom with my students, I often get teachers that are confused because I come in and I just sit and watch. And the behavior could be happening and they want the behavior stopped, and I completely get it, but I want to watch that behavior because I want to see what that student's motive is, in a sense. What is behind that behavior? What's motivating them to behave that way? And so I do often will just stop and watch. I don't react. Right. And I totally get that that's frustrating because they've been dealing with it and, they're ready. They just want me to come in and be like, this is what you do, and let's move on. But
we need to see it more than one time, too, in order to find a pattern.
And so often I'll just sit and watch. And that really oftentimes throws the student off as well. They're not used to someone just standing there watching them, as they're, behaving the way they are. And when we say behavior, honestly, it's not always bad behavior.
Right.
However, that's the behavior that typically we're going to talk about, just because that's the one that you don't want to continue happening. You want,
if we need an intervention for it, it's probably not a behavior that teachers want to continue to see.
So I'm watching though, and like I said, to see why the student could be, doing this behavior. And a lot of times they might be throwing a fit, and then if I'm watching and they notice nothing's happening, they stop and will kind of peek at you out of the corner of their eye. I then know why that behavior is happening. And it's one of there's four main reasons, four main functions to this to behavior.
Yeah.
And
Any of the maladaptive, or whatever word you want to use, the unwanted behavior that you're going to see, kids only do it because of 4 reasons. There's only 4, and it's going to be one of those 4 every time. So attention seeking, which would be the one you just described. And a lot of times kids who are seeking attention don't care if that's positive or negative. So they are going to seek that attention and to get it no matter how they can get it. And then there's control.
Yes.
Because they feel like they need to control the situation. They need to be the one in charge. They don't want anyone else telling them what to do. And they're the kid that if you decide to go toe-to-toe with them, be ready for the long haul. Because you'll know if it's control, because they're likely going to win. They won't break before you will.
That's why you never get into a power struggle with a student.
Power struggles with little kids who need control, that's their reinforcement is control. You won't win. So, and then sensory.
Yes, definitely.
Is another function. I have a great example of this from when I was teaching.
And we talked about that that's pretty easy, that shows up more regularly in younger kids. You often notice these things in younger kids where
and we understand them in younger kids.
Yes, yeah.
Because we know babies can't talk to us yet. So they have to communicate somehow, and that's usually through crying, screaming, whining.
And so that sensory piece, they're uncomfortable, they're
they're tired,
wet,
I'm hungry, I have diaper rash.
This noise is loud.
Those are things we already recognize for behaviors as communication, whereas when they're older kids, we don't stop to think, is this a sensory issue all the time? Great example, when I was teaching middle school, I had a student who was taking forever to get his papers typed on the computer. We're going way back, quite a ways back, when we pretty much just used computers to type on Word. There wasn't all the digital learning yet.
So, it was over 10 years ago. Because
way more.
When we were together at a different school, yes.
So this particular child was just trying to get his paper typed. Just trying to type it. And was taking forever. And it seemed like he was constantly off task. And it seemed like he was just, at first glance, it seemed like non-compliance. However, when I stopped to really look at what was happening and analyze the situation, I noticed he was squinting a lot. I noticed he was looking away from the screen quite a bit, and then he'd go back to it for just a short period of time, and then he would look away again. And it was just, it looked like he just wasn't paying attention, was trying to look around the room for what other kids were doing. But when I noticed when he was looking at the screen, he kept squinting his eyes, and all the brightness on the screen was bothering him so bad. And this happened to be a child on the spectrum, that it was painful to him. But he was a kid who would never complain. He was not going to complain to me, but instead his behavior was he was taking forever to do it because the brightness on his screen was driving him nuts. And so when I finally got over there and noticed what the problem was, and I showed him how to change the brightness on his screen, you should have seen the relief that came over his face. And then all of a sudden, now I'm not going to say he was as quick as the other kids even after that, no, because he also had a lot of OCD tendencies. But just changing the brightness on his screen increased his output by probably 5 times. So I said, you got to look for those sensory things too. Are they irritated by something?
I don't think we would ever think to ask at that level, is this bothering you? You're thinking about, are the other kids distracting? Are the other kids distracting? You don't ever think to be like I would ask, what's wrong?
Right.
I don't know that we think to ask that at the older, necessarily an older age.
Like I said, this is in middle school.
You think that they would just have that communication skill to share it.
Right.
And, we...
and you're going to see that a lot in kids who have any kind of language delays or impairments. You're going to see that they're not going to know how to communicate that well, if they have poor coping skills of any kind, so your kids with emotional disabilities or kids with ADHD, they're not going to be able to communicate that stuff as well as their peers because they don't have that skill yet and they have to be taught. So yeah. And then finally, the fourth function we had, attention, control, and sensory, would be the physical. You know, something is physically wrong with them. Just like when a baby's hungry, or they could be sick. They could have pain somewhere and not be able to tell you.
I mean, just a headache, and I don't want to say just a headache, but it may not be, you know, huge, you know, toothache. Something's bothering them, you know.
Exactly.
Something like that.
But you just notice something's off, and you know, maybe they're just overly aggressive today, or overly angry, or overly just have some sort of behavior that's driving you, and you're just like, what is going on there? So, you know, I guess the lesson in all of this is when we're looking at a behavior that might be driving us crazy, is that we got to analyze the environment first. That's the first place we always look.
Well, and that's something we had kind of talked about, and we'll get into, like, when we talk about the function, what is motivating this behavior. But when myself or Jenny or whoever is going to do, it's called a functional behavior assessment. We'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. And we do that to find out why that's happening. But we don't just watch that child. We are watching everything.
You have to watch what's happening around them. You have to watch adult behavior.
Adults, yes.
You have to watch everything. I mean, I was telling her earlier, my favorite quote of all time that really goes with what we're talking about today is, really the only way to change a child's behavior is to change your own. Because what we do often affects how we react to a child's behavior will determine whether they're more likely or less likely to do that behavior again.
Well, and when we write a behavior plan, honestly, like, you know, you title it at the top, so-and-so's behavior plan. But in all honesty, the behavior plan is written for the adults that are working with the child.
Absolutely.
You're telling them what behavior to do, and that's how you mold the child's behavior, and that's how you change
sneaky like that in special ed, aren't we? Yeah, we're sneaky.
I never go and say, hey, look, I made a behavior plan. But I mean, that's the only way to, like Jenny said, that's the only way to change, to get that to happen. And
we have to look at environmental factors. What do we need to fix to make it more likely they'll succeed?
And I'll be honest, like, that's something, actually today, I even said something will happen and I'll kind of stop and look over at one of my paras in the classroom, one of my aides, and say, what did I do something? Like, did you know, I never say, like, oh, you know, why did they do that? Like, if I was the one interacting with that child, what was I doing? Did I do something? Did I, you know, what happened? And what's great to have feedback like that in the classroom, that I have, you know, people in here that I can ask that question. But that's something, it's good to know as well, that we've already said by no means do we know it all? Do we have it all? And I'm still, like, those are questions I still ask every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how many times we will sit when we're having our conversations and we describe something that happened in the classroom that day, and she's like, okay, this is what happened, this is what I did, this is what, you know, okay, how am I not seeing something? Is there another way I can look at this? So, like, just that, hey, hi Leah, hey Nanette, I see that you're watching too. There's somebody else too, but they haven't said anything yet.
Well, and
we have people!
Yeah. You used to be able to see who it is, but
I know. Yeah, thank you, Leah. But just trying to really drill down, and it's not enough to say, and you got to be specific. It's not enough to say he was annoying the other students. That can look like a lot of things. You know, when you're describing a behavior that you want to change, what does that look like? Really, what does it look like, and what happened right before that? You know, so if I said to you, he was being annoying, what question would you ask me?
How? What was he doing?
What was he doing?
Well,
exactly.
What did that look like?
Well, he was kicking his friend's chair. Okay? All right?
And I probably would get even more specific.
And then,
like, a lot, repeatedly, just once or twice. Like,
exactly.
how did that?
How often was that occurring? Was it, and then what would be your next question?
When? Like, what was happening right before that happened? What?
Okay. So what was going on in the environment
yeah.
when he was kicking the chair? Exactly.
And what happened after he
exactly.
kicked the chair?
How did that friend react
Yeah.
to him kicking the chair? So the behavior that the kid might be in trouble for is he screamed at his friend. But if we look back at all the little dominoes that happened right before that and what happened after, we can kind of get down to maybe what we need to do to help that student develop a coping skill that's not yell at your friend.
You're right. And that's something else, too, is that I think that if someone isn't familiar with the process, sorry, I couldn't think of that word. If someone isn't familiar with the process, when they're giving us this information, and then we start asking questions, it kind of sometimes comes across as we are questioning them and what their thoughts are. It's like, no, we just need more information. Like,
Right.
I'm not doubting what
Right.
you're saying. I'm not doubting that this is an issue. I'm not doubting that it's
Right.
disrupting your class.
I don't know how many times I've had to explain to a teacher or a parent that I'm talking to, don't be defensive when I ask you these questions, because these questions will help me drill down and figure out exactly what advice to give you for things to try. And usually that's more helpful than anything. And I'm just, like, I get a lot out of sitting in a classroom for 20 minutes in the back, just watching what's happening, just seeing what the overall culture is. And a lot of times too, and if you're thinking about things for home even, you know, if there's something your child is doing and you're just like, oh my gosh, how do I get him to stop doing this? Take a day, just watch. Don't say anything. Pretend, I mean, it'll probably freak them out if you normally say something and you don't now.
Yes, they don't know what to do with that.
But just take a day and watch. And if they say something to you about it, you know, how are they reacting now that you're ignoring that behavior and you're just watching? How does that change? And, you know, that can tell you a lot too. Because remember, our topic from today is all behavior is communication. It's communicating something to you. Even if it's communicating, leave me alone, or if it's communicating, kids develop coping mechanisms for things that are not appropriate if they're never taught ones that are appropriate. Right. So I think that's our biggest thing, is that it has always baffled me.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, Nancy. It has always baffled me when I talk to someone and I say, if a kid doesn't know their letters, what do?
We teach them
Teach them their letters. And if a kid doesn't know how to add with regrouping, what do? We teach that. But if a kid doesn't behave appropriately, what do we typically do?
Typically, you
punish them.
And
we punish them.
Expect them to do that
instead of teaching them. So I think, if anything, I want people to get out of this, you know, is that we need to teach it. We have to teach behavior, and we think, oh, well, they should just know. They should just know. They know. If I ask them, they can tell me what they're supposed to do. Well,
but a lot of times
very different.
Because
you know what?
They've heard it.
I know what I'm supposed to do to lose weight too. Does that work out for me so well? Because I'm telling you, if knowledge was what it was all about, I'd be a size 4.
And I would be rich because I know how to save money, but do I always? No.
So kids have to be taught, and they have to develop a habit. And if we don't facilitate that through supports and prompting and sometimes firmness and loving, they don't learn those behaviors. And, you know, fear isn't the way we're allowed to do it at school. Some parents are able to do that. But we want them developing those skills so that they can be more independent and not be in trouble later.
Right.
And because kids that are in trouble all the time, they don't learn as well.
Well, and because we said this is just like our we're just starting having this conversation, and there are 4 functions. We at later times can get into, okay, let's talk about
interventions for attention
what we
seeking,
can do,
interventions
yes.
for sensory
For
issues,
sensory, yes.
interventions that deal with what do you do when a kid is having that power struggle with
Or,
you.
I mean, you know, you're probably thinking, well, if there's something physically wrong with them, they're sick or whatever, that's when we look at, okay, we have to work on that communication piece. Let's find a new way to communicate. Let's not, okay, even if it's not verbally, let's look at other ways to communicate what we need when we need them to tell us something.
For sure.
So, those are definitely topics that we will be covering later.
For sure. So, are there any questions anybody has that's on about behaviorist communication? I know us being educators, sometimes we might throw in language you don't understand, or we might, accidentally use an acronym or something like that.
We love
We're trying
acronyms.
We try not to do that because we want everybody to understand what
Not
we're doing.
necessarily us, but the special ed community loves.
Yeah, definitely.
Acronyms.
They like acronyms. But we're open to any questions. And like I said, if you're watching this on replay, give us a hashtag replay and type your questions below. We'll be happy to come back and answer those.
If there's one you would like for us to touch on first,
Right,
put that
especially
down
if
there.
there's something pressing.
Yes.
You're like, this is an issue. Let us know. Like I said, we're going to try not to use any kids' names or anything like that as we move forward. Because again, disclaimer, though we're sitting here in Betsy's classroom after school,
Yes.
this is not the opinions of Alexandria Community School District. So it's us alone. But like I said, if you have questions about behaviorist communication or anything that you want us to address in the future, we're happy to do that. I got something. Is there a company that you guys prefer for special ed or sensory equipment?
I don't know that if there's one that I personally prefer. I have tons of catalogs.
I'm going to tell you, there's a ton of sensory stuff just on Amazon.
That's
I always go there first because I usually get the best pricing for sensory equipment. And I'm going to tell you, if you order from a true special ed sensory vendor, they're probably going to cost 20 times more than what you would pay somewhere else. And we can probably help you find a low-tech solution.
I was
going
going
to
say, if there's something specific you're looking for, yes, we definitely start at Amazon.
I always start there. And if I can get an idea of something I find on Amazon, or I might look up sensory equipment for school on a Google search, and then if I find something that I'm like, oh, this is what I definitely want, we'll talk and see if there's a way we can make it. Or if there's another option that would work just the same, but it gave us the idea.
Jenny will tell you, I will find the cheapest way to do something.
For sure.
I'm trying to even buy, I need to up my classroom library for some specific things, and I'm, refusing to... I'm like, no, I need to go to Goodwill so I can get the most for my money.
Yeah.
That is my goal.
Like I said, we dollar store, Family Dollar, Dollar Tree a lot. We target the dollar spot.
And the Dollar Tree, we've talked a lot because, and I maybe said this on another video, but we'll do some things at the Dollar Tree one day, or I'll show you some things because my classroom was made from the Dollar Tree. And it's nothing for me at the beginning of the school year to go spend, no joke, $80 at the Dollar Tree to prep my classroom and get it ready.
Except for that really cool shelf we got down at IKEA.
Yeah, that was my birthday presents from her, usually classroom related. So, but yeah, I can definitely, and like I said, if there's something specific, chances are I might even have it here with me in my classroom, so I can show you where it came from. For example, right now, Jenny forgot her tripod, so my phone is sitting on a Ziploc bag of homemade Play-Doh
that we molded
into what we needed. But we used it today, and it was just sitting here. I needed to figure out something to make it. So that's what you guys are sitting on. Homemade
very
Play-Doh.
resourceful.
That has, it's green, and it smells like lemon.
Yay.
So.
Okay, any other questions before we hop off here for today? Because we don't want to keep you all day. But like I said, type your questions below, hashtag replay. If you're watching on replay, give us some feedback on today. If anything or put in the comments for us one thing you felt was helpful that we said today, or something that resonated with you, or you're like, oh my gosh, yes, that's what I do, or you know, an idea that you use when you're looking at behavior. You know, if you're a teacher, by all means jump on here, or parent, either one, and you're like, well, when I observe my kid, you know, you can put examples and things down there. That's going to help everybody.
Yeah.
So don't be shy. Put them down there. Oh, you're sweet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, the recipe is super easy. The hardest part is finding big enough thing of cream of tartar, but my mom got me a huge thing at GFS in Anderson. My mom bought it's a huge, sorry, this is backwards. It's like this big. I'm good. I'm set. So that's the hardest part of the Play-Doh.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out with us for the first episode of The Tall and the Short of It, Education Conversations with Betsy and Jenny. And we will see you all next week. And like I said, we may do some intermittent videos, either separately or together. But like I said, we'll do our big live. Not tomorrow, but starting the next week on Thursday. So Thursdays between 3 and 4 are when we're planning to go live. And I wish I could give you an exact time between 3 and 4, but this one sometimes has things she has to do after school, and sometimes I have things I have to do after school. So
yes, Patty, it is.
Thanks, Patty. Yeah. So like I said, between 3 and 4 o'clock, and I don't know if there's a way to do this. I know sometimes when I'm on my phone watching a live, it says I can click if I want notified every time somebody goes live. So maybe you can do that. I'm not sure if that popped up for any of you for this one or not, but okay. We will see you next time.
Bye.